Liam had a pretty awful life. He hadn't spent quality time with his family in almost 10 years. His work environment had gotten better lately, so the only thing keeping him going was the love of his wife and daughter. When Liam got home each day, his wife Mika would greet him and ask about their daughter, Konami. She told him Konami was already asleep, but mentioned she'd been asking for a dog all day. Apparently, after seeing a Shiba at her friend's house recently, she couldn't stop thinking about it. Liam wasn't sure they could afford a dog right now, but after looking at his sleeping daughter, he thought it might be worth it if it would make Konami happy, even if he had to work extra hours for a few weeks. The next day, he took Konami to a pet store to get her a dog, and she was absolutely thrilled. Mika was genuinely surprised that Liam went along with the idea, since it would only add more responsibilities to his already full plate. But he didn't mind. He believed that as long as his wife and daughter were happy, he could handle whatever challenges came his way. But he was completely wrong. The following day at work, Liam's boss yelled at him for not submitting a report on time. Liam pointed out that he actually sent the report on Thursday, but his boss was at a club enjoying himself that day, so he missed the message. Yet somehow, the boss still managed to blame Liam. Work was nothing but a daily struggle for him. Whether dealing with his careless boss or disrespectful subordinates, they never hesitated to steal credit for his hard work, while also blaming him for mistakes he didn't make. His professional life was absolute chaos. Still, no matter how rough the day was, coming home to his wife and daughter gave him just enough strength to keep going. However, the next day, as Liam was riding the train to work, he got a message from his friend, Nita. Nita told him about an upcoming video game and asked if he could help buy one for him. Liam couldn't help but laugh at how obsessed Nita was with video games, but being a good friend, he agreed to pick one up. He got off the train and checked his GPS to find the store. Since he didn't know the area well, he ended up getting lost. As he looked around trying to spot the store, something unexpected caught his eye. His wife was on a date with some random guy. At first, Liam couldn't believe what he was seeing, especially because Mika had told him she was taking Konami to the sports club that day, but she never did. That night, Liam came home after work and casually asked Mika how her day went. His wife lied, saying she only took Konami to sword practice and nothing more. Liam almost mentioned that he saw her on what looked like a date, but in the end, he played along, acting like everything was normal. The thought of breaking up their happy family was too much. So, he started to doubt himself. Maybe he misunderstood what he saw. Surely, Mika would never betray him like that. Needing some time to think, Liam decided to step away for a while. He tried to put his computer on standby, but for some reason it wouldn't cooperate, leaving him no choice but to shut it down completely until he came back. As he walked through the city, he found himself back at the same place where he'd seen his wife on a date the day before. This time, the spot was empty, and he felt relieved when he confirmed she wasn't there today. But that brief relief disappeared when he overheard Mika talking on the phone with the man he suspected was her lover. To his horror, she'd even brought Konami along. Liam desperately hoped that maybe this guy was just a close friend, but then Konami called him Dad. And in that moment, his whole world fell apart. Stunned, he returned to work, forcing himself to believe there had to be some explanation. Maybe it was just a really devoted friend who pretended to be Konami's father when he wasn't around. Surely his wife wouldn't betray him like this. Right then, his boss walked over and started yelling at Liam for slacking off. Liam explained he was just waiting for his computer to boot up. It had been acting up with the standby mode lately, and for security reasons, he had to shut it down completely whenever he took a break. But instead of understanding, his boss yelled even louder and told him he should just stop taking breaks altogether. Just then, he got a call from Mika, who told him that Konami had been in an accident. Panicking, Liam rushed straight to the hospital. When he arrived, he immediately asked Mika about Konami's whereabouts. She told him their daughter had already been taken into the operating room. A doctor came out and asked if they were Konami's parents. After they both confirmed, the doctor explained that their daughter needed a blood transfusion, so one of them would need to donate blood, and asked what their blood types were. Liam said his blood type was AB positive, while Mika confirmed hers was O positive. Hearing this, the doctor asked Mika to come with him into the operating room for the transfusion. Confused, Liam asked why he couldn't be the donor instead. The doctor explained that since Konami had type O blood, Liam's AB positive blood would be incompatible with hers. While the surgery was happening, Liam did some research and found out that it was biologically impossible for Konami to have an O blood type if he was AB. So the only logical conclusion was that she wasn't actually his daughter. Liam reached his breaking point. He finally turned to Mika and demanded the truth. Was Konami really his daughter? But instead of answering, Mika twisted the situation, flipping the accusation back on him. She claimed she was the one who should be furious, insisting he never truly cared about their family. She said he was never around, so Liam explained that it was because he always had to work late. But Mika wouldn't listen. She insisted that Liam's job was pointless since he never got raises or promotions, meaning he couldn't provide the life she wanted. Liam was shocked by her words, but Mika kept going, shouting that throughout their 10-year marriage, she'd barely seen him, forcing her to raise Konami entirely on her own. Of course, she was ignoring the fact that Konami wasn't even Liam's child. She told Liam that he was never really part of their family and announced that she was taking Konami and leaving. Liam asked where she thought she was going, but Mika didn't answer. Instead, she went straight to Konami's door, telling her they were leaving. Liam tried to hold her back, but Mika jerked away, leaving him desperate. He shouted that he'd always tried his hardest for Konami and begged her not to leave him. But then Konami coldly said she preferred her other dad more. And at that moment, all hope drained from him. The next day, Liam showed up to work, still heartbroken over his family's betrayal. But things got even worse when his boss called him in and accused him of stealing company money. Liam insisted he didn't do it, but the boss had proof of 50 million yen transferred to an unknown account, and the transaction logs were all traced back to Liam's computer. With that, he was immediately fired. After Liam lost his job, Mika used it as the perfect excuse to file for divorce and even sued him for child support, despite the fact that Konami wasn't even his biological daughter. To avoid going to jail over the theft charges, Liam agreed to pay back the 50 million yen by taking a job as a construction worker. His life felt basically over now, and the only bit of happiness he still held onto came from Nita. When Nita texted him about the newest episode of their favorite show, Liam started typing back that he'd love to watch it together, but then erased the message, too ashamed to let Nida see just how broken his life had become. He tried to stay hopeful, believing that if he just kept working hard, things would eventually get better. But then, during his lunch break, he suddenly started coughing up blood. Later that night, he couldn't sleep as the bloody coughing fits only got worse, and the harsh reality hit him. He couldn't even afford to see a doctor. With no way to get treatment, he had no choice but to lie in bed and wait for the inevitable end. But just as life started slipping away from his body, a mysterious light appeared above him and began showing him a series of visions. In those visions, he saw the truth. It was actually his boss who stole the 50 million yen using Liam's computer. And to make things worse, that same boss was the one Mika had been cheating on him with all along. Everything Mika said before about feeling neglected turned out to be completely made up. She had always seen Liam as nothing more than a pathetic guy she could use for money. In fact, she had been involved in the entire plan to frame him for the company's missing funds. Liam was devastated and struggled to accept that what he was seeing could actually be real. But then a mysterious man appeared and confirmed it was all true. He looked Liam in the eyes and asked if he was really going to let them get away with such awful betrayal. And Liam, having finally reached his breaking point, promised to make them pay for everything they'd done, even if it was the last thing he ever did. The man seemed pleased by the anger now radiating from Liam, saying he was glad he decided to drop by, but he never gave his name. So Liam asked who he was supposed to be and why he was even there. The man explained that he simply took an interest in Liam because he was a genuinely good person. But Liam wasn't impressed. Being a good man got him nothing in the end. If he had the chance to do it all over again, he'd live only for himself, putting his own needs above everyone else's. Hearing this, the man smiled with satisfaction and revealed the real reason he was there. He was offering Liam the chance to start over in another world. All Liam had to do was choose which world he wanted to be reincarnated into. This could have just been a hallucination he was having on his deathbed. But if he truly was being offered the chance to choose a new world, then he wanted to make it worthwhile. He remembered Nida once mentioning something about another world with robots and space battleships. If he chose this path, he'd be stepping into a world where advanced technology and magic existed together, a place ruled by kings and aristocrats. But power favored the privileged, and there was no guarantee of status. For all Liam knew, he could wake up as a poor farmer, stuck working the land while airships flew overhead and nobles controlled his fate. But because the man took a liking to him, he said he'd reincarnate Liam as the son of a count who governed an entire planet just to make things better for him. Hearing this, Liam was relieved that his next life would be an improvement over his current one, so with his final breath, he signed the contract, and his soul was transported to the new world on planet Hydra. Today marked Liam's 5th birthday, and to celebrate, his mother had arranged a party in his honor. She also had a special gift prepared for him. She instructed Liam to follow her, activating a floating spell beneath her feet. Liam copied her action. When they arrived in the next room, he discovered a massive cake alongside a huge box. Excitedly, Liam tore open his present to find a cube inside. His mother explained that this was the character customization tool for his very own AI maid. With this remote, he could choose any features he wanted for the maid. And once selected, the design would be sent to a manufacturing company for production. Among the customizable options were the ears, mouth, and various other body parts. Liam questioned why she would give something like that to a 5-year-old, but she insisted it was very important. At that moment, his father approached and said he also had a special present for Liam, the entire Banfield domain. Liam was shocked to hear that his father was actually willing to pass down the entire domain to someone his age. He asked if his father was truly serious about naming him the new count, and his father confirmed it. However, there was just one small condition that Liam had to agree to first. Once he handed over the estate, he wanted to move to the Imperial planet with his wife and enjoy a peaceful life. So he told Liam that in order to receive the domain, he'd need to agree to provide him with a monthly allowance. Liam was so excited by the idea of having power that he didn't notice how strange it was for his father to willingly give everything to a child. So when his father presented him with a contract to sign, Liam didn't bother reading it. He just signed. Once the signature was complete, his father took the contract and announced that he and his wife would now be leaving. Yet Liam still didn't realize that he'd probably just been tricked, choosing to ignore the suspicious details. He instead focused on the fact that he was now officially a count, and he fully intended to use that authority to make sure no one could ever take advantage of him again. None of this would have been possible without the mysterious man's help. So, he felt incredibly grateful to him. But the truth was, Liam really shouldn't have trusted someone who literally thrived on misery and pain. Just after Liam was sent off to the other world, the man decided to cause a bit more suffering before heading back to his own realm. He turned his attention to Mika and Liam's boss, who were still hanging out and laughing together at a restaurant. Liam's boss joked that he felt a bit guilty for completely ruining Liam's life like that. However, Mika responded that she didn't feel sorry for him at all. In her eyes, he totally deserved to suffer for wasting 10 years of her life. Out of nowhere, a group of police officers surrounded the boss and informed him that he was under arrest. He tried to argue that there must be some kind of misunderstanding, but the officers had already reviewed the surveillance footage showing him setting Liam up for the theft. With that evidence, they were ready to throw him in jail for a long time. And with her wealthy supporter now headed to prison, Mika wouldn't be receiving any more financial help, leaving her completely miserable. Meanwhile, the mysterious guide was enjoying the chaos and pain he'd managed to create. Now, the only thing left was to transfer Liam's soul to the other world. And the guide planned to make sure Liam experienced even more suffering there than he ever did here. He was looking forward to enjoying every bit of Liam's despair once he realized just how terrible his new life would be. And since people in that world lived much longer, Liam would be stuck enduring that misery for centuries to come. Meanwhile, in the new world, a planet was being attacked by ghost pirates. Just as their captain believed victory was within reach, several of his crew members suddenly exploded. And during the confusion, he noticed Lieb's princess knight hovering in the air. As the first princess of the Holy Kingdom of Lieb, Christiana was a powerful warrior, and the moment she entered the fight, the pirates started falling quickly. Thanks to her help, the Lieb army gained momentum, forcing the pirates to retreat. However, even as they fled, Christiana ordered her troops to continue the attack. They needed to teach those reckless pirates a lesson they wouldn't forget. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Liam had just gotten his new AI maid, and he was absolutely thrilled. What he didn't expect, though, was that she'd arrive packaged inside a doll. His butler explained that all Liam had to do was touch the package to open it. Following the instruction, Liam did just that, and the maid gracefully landed on the floor. She introduced herself as Amagi, and the butler informed Liam that starting today, she would act as his personal assistant. He also mentioned that while Amagi would need weekly maintenance, aside from that, she'd be available 24/7 to attend to Liam's every need. But Liam hadn't been paying attention for a while, as he was completely focused on examining her features. The butler asked what he was doing, and Liam replied that he was simply making sure the manufacturing company followed all the customization requests he made. Even so, the butler warned him that this kind of behavior wasn't appropriate in front of others. In response, Liam asked Amagi to follow him to his room so he could carefully inspect every single part of her body, leaving the butler deeply concerned about Liam's innocence. A few hours later, Liam was enjoying a shoulder massage from Amagi when the butler walked in and asked what exactly went on in the room, but Liam brushed it off, telling him not to worry about it. He might look like a 5-year-old, but his mind was actually 36. Even so, the butler pointed out that 36 was still basically a kid in this world. Liam was completely taken aback by that. So, Amagi stepped in to explain that the average lifespan here was around 600 years, and people weren't even considered adults until they reached about 100. Liam was completely unaware that lifespans in this place were so long, but it filled him with joy. After all, a long life meant he'd have plenty of time to explore countless experiences, and having Amagi beside him through it all made it even better. Liam's butler cautioned him that getting too close to Amagi wasn't a wise decision, since the Empire generally had a deep hatred for AI. If people were to see him being overly friendly with one, it could start some troubling rumors. Liam didn't see why anyone would hate AI, so he asked the butler to explain. The butler told him that a long time ago, humanity was nearly wiped out during a massive war against the AI. Humans were enslaved and brought to the edge of extinction. But in that dark time, a brave group rose up, fought back against the AI machines, and reclaimed freedom for mankind. Those same heroes went on to establish the Empire, which explained why its noble class had such hatred toward AI. But if that was really the case, then why would his mother have given him an AI robot for his birthday? The butler admitted he was told to keep it a secret. But since Liam was now the new count, he ordered the butler to reveal the truth. Reluctantly, the butler disclosed that Liam's parents had abandoned him and fled. Liam demanded to know what they were running from, and the butler clarified. They dumped the enormous debt of the Banfield family onto your shoulders so they wouldn't have to face it themselves. Liam's great-grandfather, Alistair, was a great man who accomplished many things and made a name for the Banfield family. But Liam's father was completely useless, so when he took over control of the Banfield family, he ran everything straight into the ground. Now, the Banfield family owed a ton of money and had lost the rights to all the farmable resources on their frontier planet. On top of that, their industries had shrunk, so there was almost no tax money coming in, which meant they'd never be able to pay back the debt. Somewhere else on planet Hydra, a few locals were gathered in a bar, talking about how their new lord was supposedly just a 5-year-old kid. One of the men started complaining about how much he hated living here, remembering that the last time a new lord took over, they were hit with heavy taxes for no apparent reason. But for now, all they could really do was hope that things would go better this time around. Meanwhile, Liam was still trying to understand everything. If the Banfield domain had been poor for so long, why would his parents suddenly decide to drop the burden on their 5-year-old son? But then he realized that they must have had him specifically because they wanted to dump their debts on him. In his previous life, Liam was mistreated, used, and thrown away like trash. But he promised himself that he wouldn't let the same thing happen in this world. He turned to Amagi and asked her to work with him to ensure his future turned out well. And Amagi was more than willing to help in any way she could. After all, Liam had given her a purpose. Liam felt relieved to finally have someone he could trust completely. And he was genuinely looking forward to building a future alongside Amagi. But before that, he decided to give her the 3 laws of robots that would ensure human safety. The first law was that Amagi wasn't allowed to harm any human being. Then Liam thought about it and realized that he didn't care about any other humans. So he decided to go with a different set of rules. First, he stated that Amagi was forbidden from doing anything that could harm him. Next, she had to follow all of Liam's commands unless those commands would go against the first rule. And lastly, she must protect herself at all times, as long as doing so didn't conflict with either the first or second rule. With that settled, Liam told Amagi that he intended to restore the Banfield domain to prosperity and asked if she had any suggestions on how to achieve that. Amagi quickly ran a search and soon came up with an idea. But before sharing it with Liam, she warned him that as an AI robot, her ideas might not align with the Empire's values. Still, she assured him that she was fully capable of providing administrative support to help in his governance. The problem was, Liam knew almost nothing about this world. So Amagi suggested that he use an education capsule. It was a special device that could implant a decade's worth of knowledge directly into his mind in just 6 months. And as a bonus, it even improved his physical condition during the process. Liam agreed it was a good plan, but since someone needed to oversee the Banfield domain while he was inside, he gave Amagi temporary administrative control to manage things in his absence. Brian protested the idea, not liking the thought of Liam giving control of the entire domain to a robot. But Liam reassured him that it wasn't a problem. Amagi would never do anything wrong unless he specifically told her to. Plus, there was no law that banned a robot from managing a domain temporarily, so he decided to trust everything to her for now. With the education capsule ready, Liam prepared to start the procedure. But before stepping in, he had one last question for Amagi. He wondered if she could feel emotions or at least something similar to them. Amagi admitted she couldn't say for sure. But when Liam invited her to work with him, her systems registered a memory overflow. Or, to put it more simply, it made her happy. Pleased by her response, Liam repeated that he was trusting everything to Amagi's care as he stepped into the education capsule. After some time, the education pod finally opened, and Amagi was there to welcome him. He asked her how much time had passed since he entered the capsule, and Amagi told him it had been 2 years. After getting dressed, Liam listened as Amagi outlined the current economic situation of the Banfield territory. Everything appeared to be going well, which prompted Liam to thank her for all the effort she'd put in. Liam mentioned that he wanted to look around the territory, so Amagi decided to show him the battleship docks first. It was actually the first time Liam had ever seen the territory with his own eyes, and he found the battlesuits particularly fascinating. Curious, he asked Amagi if he could try piloting one, and she was more than happy to set up a test for him. She explained that the armor handled basic movements automatically, so all Liam had to do was picture the action he wanted to take, and the suit would carry it out. He decided to give it a try, and once the suit systems activated, Liam found he could move around freely in it. He expressed his wish to test it in combat. Liam was surprised when Amagi told him she could set up a practice battle for him. Shortly after, Machida, the chief of the planet's defense force, arrived to spar with Liam. The moment the match started, Liam rushed forward and swung at Machida. Though Machida blocked the strike, he played along and acted as if he'd been defeated. Machida wasn't the best actor, so Liam quickly realized he was holding back, and he wasn't happy about it. He ordered Machida to fight him seriously. As a direct order from his lord, Machida had no choice but to comply. When Liam attacked again, Machida grabbed his sword, easily disarmed him, and flipped him onto the ground. Stunned by how easily he lost, Liam struggled to understand what had happened. Amagi then explained that the suit's movements depended entirely on the user's mental visualization, meaning experienced fighters like Machida with years of battle experience had far better control. Because of that embarrassing loss, Liam instructed Brian to find him a combat instructor right away. Brian tried to convince him that there was no real need for him to learn how to fight, but Liam was firm in his decision and refused to listen to any objections. In his previous life, he was constantly pushed around by those with more power. So, if he planned to live as an evil lord in this world, then he needed to become strong. Later on, Liam met a guy named Yasushi, who he thought looked super cool. Excited, he introduced himself and asked Yasushi to be his instructor. Yasushi agreed, but Amagi had her doubts. She felt hiring Yasushi wasn't a great idea, since he seemed kind of sketchy. Liam didn't disagree about the suspicious vibes, but since Yasushi carried himself like a proper samurai, he was willing to overlook those concerns. Amagi knew she couldn't oppose Liam's decision if he believed Yasushi would be a good teacher, but she suggested he at least check out Yasushi's skills first. Taking her advice, Liam asked for a quick demonstration. Yasushi led them to a forest clearing where he'd already set up wooden posts for training. Before starting, he told Liam he was about to show his secret technique called the Way of the Flash, and warned he wouldn't perform it ever again, so Liam needed to pay close attention. Understanding how important this was, Liam asked Amagi to record it so he could review it later. Yasushi got into position, partially pulled out his sword, then closed it again. In the next instant, every pillar around him was sliced cleanly in half. Liam was completely blown away. A human moving that fast shouldn't even be possible. He asked Amagi to play the recording back in slow motion to see exactly how Yasushi did it. But no matter how much she slowed it down, there was no sign that Yasushi had ever actually drawn his sword. Liam figured Yasushi must have moved so fast, the cameras couldn't capture it. which only made him more convinced that Yasushi was amazing. He eagerly asked to become his disciple. That same night, Yasushi returned to the clearing with the pillars, laughing to himself that Liam had actually fallen for his act. The whole thing was just a cheap trick. He'd pre-cut the pillars so they'd collapse on cue. Thanks to that little stunt, he'd secured himself an easy paycheck from Liam without having to do any real work. Meanwhile, the princess was heading to meet with Go's pirates to negotiate a potential peace agreement. When she arrived, Go sneered that she was foolish to come alone. Christiana fired back, making it clear she hadn't come without backup. If Go made even one hostile move, the entire Alliance fleet standing by would reduce his ship to dust. This was meant to show strength, but Go wasn't intimidated since he knew the Alliance was actually backing him. Right then, Christiana got a report saying pirates had surrounded her home planet, which completely shocked her. There was no way pirates should have been able to get past her planet's defenses. That's when Go revealed that the alliance she'd built wasn't as solid as she thought. Some members were more than willing to betray her once he made them an offer. Her crew then alerted her that every ship in the alliance had aimed its weapons at their ship. Stunned, she couldn't believe Go had actually turned her own forces against her. With no other choice, she was forced to listen to Go's demands. Back on Liam's world, he'd been training under Yasushi and was totally exhausted. No matter how hard he tried, he still couldn't do the Way of the Flash technique. He asked Amagi if there was any way he could learn it. But since she was just a maid, she didn't really know anything about it. For 3 years, Yasushi had only taught Liam the basics of swordsmanship, and Liam was getting bored with the repetition. On the bright side, Amagi pointed out that his fighting skills were much better than before. But Liam didn't care about that. He wanted a flashy move that would look cool. That night, Yasushi was in his room reading manga like always, still amazed he'd landed such a great job. While he was a scammer, he did know some sword-fighting basics. For the past 3 years, all he'd done was show Liam some basic techniques, and he'd been making ridiculous money for it. He hoped this easy gig would never end. Just then, Liam walked in and asked Yasushi to teach him the Way of the Flash. Yasushi immediately said he was quitting, making up an excuse and reminding Liam that he'd said he would only demonstrate the technique once. So if Liam wasn't happy with that, there was no point in Yasushi staying as his teacher. Liam quickly apologized and begged for forgiveness for being so rude. Yasushi said he'd forgive him this time, but warned him not to make the same mistake again. As soon as Liam left the room, Yasushi sighed with relief, having worried that Liam might have realized he was a total fraud. There was no way he could teach Liam the Way of the Flash, when he himself had no idea how it worked. Liam came back a moment later, and Yasushi panicked, thinking he might have overheard him. But Liam just wanted to say he had something to take care of the next day, and wouldn't be able to train. Meanwhile, Christiana had been captured by the Go pirates and was being held in Captain Go's quarters. She demanded to know what he planned to do with her, and Go casually explained he just wanted to give her the best view in the house. At first, she didn't understand what he meant until Go ordered his entire fleet to aim their weapons directly at her home planet. The horrible realization hit her, and she desperately begged Go to call off the attack. But it was no use. With a cold command, he signaled his crew to fire, and Christiana could only watch in horror as her planet was destroyed before her eyes. Back on Liam's planet, he was still frustrated that he hadn't learned the Way of the Flash yet. But he still had his duties as a lord, so he asked Amagi for the monthly report. Amagi showed him some graphs about the planet's economy. While the huge debt was still there, the production sectors had been growing steadily. Liam was glad he'd put Amagi in charge of governance, since she was clearly doing a good job. But Amagi pointed out that growth was actually much slower than she'd expected. They'd invested a lot in programs like welfare, but the returns were way less than they should be given the budget and time. Liam asked to see the financial reports for the welfare program, and all his years of accounting finally paid off because he immediately spotted the problem. He told Amagi to bring in the guy in charge of the welfare program. When the noble arrived, Liam got straight to the point, telling him to explain himself. The noble tried to play dumb, but Liam knew he'd been stealing money from the welfare program. The noble had tried to hide it with some tricky bookkeeping, but Liam had reviewed enough financial records to know something wasn't right. Making things worse, the noble had changed suppliers for the project, so Liam pressed him for an explanation. The noble claimed the other vendor was better, but if that were true, the welfare program would be doing much better. It was obvious the noble was totally corrupt. Surprisingly, Liam wasn't even that mad. After all, he'd come to this world because he wanted to be an evil lord, so he needed to learn how to take advantage of his position too. Just then, Amagi mentioned that an embezzlement case had been opened against the noble, and Liam was surprised to hear the noble was caught, but somehow kept his job. The noble explained that the investigation was closed after they decided the real culprit was one of his subordinates. Liam asked Amagi if that was true, and she confirmed it, but added that no real evidence was ever presented to prove the subordinate was guilty, and the noble had the man executed. Amagi had seen this pattern before, so she accused the noble of framing his subordinate and having him killed. The noble desperately denied everything, but Liam could tell he was lying. Without saying anything, Liam picked up his sword and began slowly walking toward him. Realizing Liam wasn't buying any of it, the noble changed tactics and started pleading his case, claiming all the other nobles were doing the same thing, so in his mind it was totally normal to ruin people's lives for his own benefit. Hearing this, Liam drew his sword and prepared to execute the noble, but Amagi quickly stepped in, urging him to stop. The noble started shouting that Liam was too young to understand that this was just how the world worked. But before he could say another word, Liam cut off his head. Still furious, Liam ordered Amagi to investigate every noble on the planet and execute all the corrupt ones immediately. But she insisted he needed to take a break first. This was the first time Liam had ever killed someone, and he was so shaken that he couldn't even let go of his sword. Amagi gently helped him open his hand. Regarding his order, she explained that killing all the corrupt nobles would cause serious problems. Since almost every noble was corrupt, executing them all would leave the planet with no one to handle administration. As a compromise, she suggested he prepare some dolls to take over the administrative roles. And since Liam trusted her judgment, he agreed. Some time passed, and Liam went back to the loading bay. Having mastered the basics of sword fighting, he felt ready to train again in a battle suit. But just as he was about to get into one, Yasushi showed up and warned him that relying on standard automated suits would prevent him from becoming a truly great warrior. So Liam asked Mashita if there might be another suit available. Mashita told him there was one, but it was completely manual, and almost no one had ever been able to use it. The reason Yasushi came up with this idea was because Liam was actually becoming a skilled swordsman. If Liam ever mastered swordsmanship, Yasushi would lose his job as a fraud. While digging through storage looking for things to steal, he'd found an old mech. That's when he decided to trick Liam into using it, knowing perfectly well that a kid like him would never be able to master it. And sure enough, his plan worked perfectly. Now, Liam was completely dedicated to training with the mech. In theory, since the mech operated entirely manually, mastering it could give Liam an advantage over every automatic mech user in the galaxy. So training with it might really increase his strength. But first, he needed to find someone who could fix it. Brian was happy that Liam was so dedicated to his mech training, but he didn't understand why Liam insisted on starting with a manual model that was so hard to handle. He was even more confused by why Liam had spent the last few days constantly slashing at a post. Brian asked Liam what he was doing, and Liam explained he was just trying to recreate the secret technique Yasushi had shown him. No matter how long it took, he was determined to keep practicing until he mastered it. Brian doubted the technique actually existed, but he knew there was no way he could convince Liam that Yasushi was lying to him, so he just let Liam do what he wanted. That same day, Amagi went to the loading bay to carry out Liam's request. She personally suspected Yasushi was nothing but a fraud, but since Liam was determined to use this mech, she was committed to doing everything she could to help. However, she didn't have the expertise to handle the maintenance herself, so they needed a specialist. The next day, Liam and Amagi went to the port to meet Nia, and the moment Nia saw Amagi, she started acting strangely. Liam figured someone from the Empire would be disgusted by an android, but surprisingly, Nia seemed genuinely excited. She had a weird obsession with androids, and recognizing that Amagi was an extremely advanced model, was eager to examine every detail for research. Liam had done the same thing when he first met Amagi, but seeing someone else do it was just awkward, so he told Nia to stop. Later, he took her to the hangar where the manual mech was stored and asked if she could fix it. Nia said it was practically finished and suggested he'd be better off just buying a newer model, but Liam refused. He was set on using this specific mech. Nia warned him that replacement parts for this outdated model weren't made anymore, so fixing it wouldn't be cheap. Still, Liam didn't mind. He was ready to pay whatever it cost to get the machine working again. For Nia, those words were like music to her ears. Now she could charge him a fortune for the repairs, and he wouldn't even complain. But there was another issue. Liam mentioned he wanted the mech to have a finisher. Nia wasn't sure what a finisher was supposed to be, so Liam explained it was a stylish move he could use to destroy his enemies, like a rocket punch. Just then, Yasushi walked into the bay, and the moment he saw Nia, he was instantly attracted to her. After pulling himself together, he tried to act cool and approach her, but she ignored him, more interested in explaining why a rocket punch was a stupid idea. Nia argued the thrusters would take up too much space, and deliberately sacrificing your hand mid-battle was a terrible idea. But Liam still thought it was awesome, so he told Nia to spare no expense in giving the mech a rocket punch. They eventually reached an agreement, but Yasushi was shocked that Nia seemed to prefer Liam over him. It might have been because Liam was genuinely attractive, while Yasushi was an old, musty samurai. So, he channeled his frustration by putting Liam through brutal, nearly impossible training. Yasushi made Liam balance on a log in the middle of a lake, blindfolded while shooting tennis balls at him. He rambled nonsense about this exercise, unlocking Liam's mind's eye to sense attacks without seeing them, but it was complete garbage. Meanwhile, after Go took over Christiana's ship, she and her entire crew had been captured. Go wasn't just holding them prisoner, he was thoroughly enjoying taunting her. Christiana demanded to know what Go planned to do with her, and he casually explained he was taking her to his treasure planet to be added to his collection. At first, she thought he meant some kind of twisted pleasure vault, but the truth was far more disturbing. Go forced her to his lab, where Christiana saw something horrible, a deformed mass of flesh that was once one of her own crew members. After Go delivered the woman to his scientist, she'd been transformed into something straight out of a nightmare. Go told the scientist that Christiana would become his new pet, and he had many ideas he wanted to test on her. He planned to cut out one of her eyes and implant it in his hand so she could watch her body being horribly disfigured, just like his other pets. While Christiana went through the most painful experience of her life, things on Liam's planet were going pretty well. Under his leadership, the economy had improved significantly, making the locals happy. They hadn't expected such success and were eager to see what Liam would do next to improve the planet. What they didn't know was that Liam had just spent a huge portion of the planet's budget on his mech. Nia had finally finished restoring it to its former glory and was extremely proud of the results. Because of that, she offered to show Liam how the controls worked. Inside the mech, the control room had been enlarged for greater comfort. Once Liam was strapped in, Nia started the engine. As the mech powered up, it immediately scanned Liam, registering him as the new pilot and locking out anyone else from using it. Liam was thrilled to finally test it out, but the moment he grabbed the controls, the mech collapsed. Maya pointed out that this mech had no auto-balance functions, meaning Liam had to manually steady it with every step. Typically, this would be incredibly difficult, but Liam had been preparing for this, so he regained control of the mech and carefully brought it back upright. He then slowly started moving out of the hangar. Nia was amazed by how skillfully he handled it, especially since it was his first time operating it. While he was walking, she told Liam that his imagination was crucial for this mech's operation. The more vivid his mental image, the sharper the mech's movements would be. Liam tried to focus his imagination to make the mech do something cool, but then his eyes wandered over to Nia's chest, and it all went downhill from there. Liam started vividly picturing what it would be like to touch Nia in every possible way, and the mech acted out those movements right in front of everyone. Nobody realized the mech was simply responding to Liam's imagination, so they all thought he was having inappropriate thoughts about Nia. Yasushi was furious at the idea that Liam had stolen his woman right from under him, but Brian was actually relieved. At least this time, it involved a human. Meanwhile, Liam was trying to come up with an explanation so Nia wouldn't think he was a pervert, but the mech had already started doing pelvic thrusts, and there was no coming back from that. As revenge, Yasushi hit Liam with tennis balls out of jealousy again. After that, Liam went back to his regular training. He was outside practicing the Way of the Flash technique, but no matter how much he swung his sword, he couldn't cut the post from a distance. He was starting to worry he had no talent for this kind of swordsmanship. But Amagi approached and reassured him that wasn't true. The problem was with Yasushi's teaching and how much Liam trusted him. However, when Amagi brought up Liam's faith in Yasushi, he misunderstood it as her saying he didn't trust his teacher enough. Convinced Yasushi would never deceive him, Liam decided he must be misunderstanding Yasushi's lessons somehow. Just then, he remembered that magic existed in this world. So even though slicing a post without touching it seemed physically impossible, it should be possible with magic. Liam had just made a major breakthrough in his training. For the next couple of months, he diligently practiced slashing with his magic, until one day he called Yasushi to show him what he'd accomplished. Liam told Yasushi that he had finally perfected the Way of the Flash. Yasushi doubted this was possible and expected another failure. Yet as Liam drew his sword, he released a large wave of magic, cutting the post in two from a distance. Amazed by what he saw, Yasushi struggled to maintain his act as a master and told Liam he'd done well, but still had much to learn before truly mastering the technique. After Yasushi left, he started to panic because Liam was turning out to be a monster when it came to training. Yasushi had been lying about the Way of the Flash for years, but somehow Liam had actually made it happen. Some time passed, and Liam learned that one of his resource planets was under attack from pirates. It was the only one that hadn't been taken for the mortgage on the Banfield debt. The Empire hadn't seized it only because its environment was poor, and mining there was difficult, so they didn't think it was worth much. However, Amagi had established several plants on the planet to provide extra income for Liam, and those plants were currently under attack by pirates. Although the Banfield forces stationed there were fighting back, they seemed likely to lose. When Liam asked if Amagi had a battle plan ready, she suggested they attack the pirates, approaching from the planet's blind spot to launch a surprise assault. Liam liked that idea, So he ordered all his troops to get ready to hold off the pirate forces in orbit while he personally defended the planet. Brian tried to object, since it was dangerous for the Lord to fight pirates in person, but Liam refused to let anyone steal from him again. Plus, he really wanted to show off his new skills. Liam and his fleet quickly reached the planet. Amagi prepared the rail cannon and loaded Liam's mech inside. Once the cannon was fully charged and aimed, Amagi launched Liam directly toward the planet's surface. Meanwhile, the pirates were finishing off the remaining defense forces when one of them was suddenly blasted from the sky. The pirates turned to find their attacker, and moments later, Liam swooped down, slicing one of them in half. The remaining units tried to scatter and hide to surround Liam, but as two tried to sneak up from behind, Liam sensed them coming and instantly cut them apart. He couldn't actually see them. The countless tennis balls Yasushi had thrown at him had taught him to anticipate unseen attacks. At that moment, a group of pirates began shooting lasers at him. Liam responded by sheathing his sword and summoning a beam rifle. He started firing at the pirates relentlessly in all directions. The pirates tried to overpower him by charging all at once, but in doing so, they lined up perfectly for Liam's hidden technique. Liam unsheathed his sword and, with a burst of mana, wiped out a massive portion of the pirate forces. The pirates were shocked that Liam could cut them down from far away, and if he could do that, they didn't want to keep fighting. Those still standing immediately turned and ran. Liam felt disappointed. He was hoping to show off more of his swordsmanship, but he had no intention of letting them escape. With that in mind, he prepared to use his secret weapon. Liam shouted, "Rocket punch!" and aimed his arm at the escaping pirates. But instead of a standard rocket punch, a huge missile launched toward them. None of the pirates would survive such an attack, but Liam was frustrated because this wasn't what he had in mind when he asked Nia to install a rocket punch. Just then, Liam got a message from Amagi, who apologized for not eliminating the entire pirate fleet. About 60% of the pirates had managed to escape, but Amagi had successfully destroyed around 30% of their forces. The remaining ships were captured and repurposed for Liam's army. While completely wiping out the pirates would have been ideal, Liam was still happy with the outcome